all of our nipples were bleeding. Charlie Horse, thank you so much for the donation. Hi, Duncan. I've been trying to be more compassionate, but I find myself being unable to, especially with people who have genuinely wronged me. Can you help me understand compassion? Yeah, obviously. All right, let me come out of whatever that cranky thing was and try to answer that question in a serious way, without being sarcastic or stuff I love to do, because it feels vulnerable to talk about this stuff. It's easier to put on like a cranky, cynical thing than to be direct. I guess you could call it cowardice. First of all, with compassion, everyone else who came here for me being a weirdo, just, I don't know, go to fucking GameStop for a few minutes. I'll be right back. It's a good question. And before I even attempt to answer it, I feel obligated, though I doubt after hearing me ramble for the last hour and a half, anyone here has any questions about this, but like, I am an extremely flawed person who loves spiritual things. So that's just, first of all, let me just say that, meaning that I don't want to be a charlatan just because I can sort of say things that I've read about, doesn't mean that I am applying them successfully most of the time. So compassion in Vajrayana Buddhism, which I study, is generally a little different from like what most people think of as compassion. So compassion is a word like love. What is it? What does that even mean? What does compassion even mean? Like, when people talk about compassion, they look at it as a kind of merciful attitude, or a sort of like in the quest for demonstrating compassion, a lot of like fakery happens, which is you have some kind of rough sketch in your mind of what compassion must be, and then you sort of generally you just beat yourself up because you don't execute what that is in your mind, which for a lot of people is like akin to like Jesus or something. Like, it's this insane idea of what it is. So compassion is something that's cultivated. In Vajrayana Buddhism, it's called cultivation. You cultivate it. So in other words, it's not like everyone just is born compassionate. And if you've ever been to a playground, you could see this is the case. Like, and if you have kids, you could see this is the case. You could see this is the case when a toddler snatches a toy away from a baby. So we're not sort of naturally born with compassion. Thus, compassion is something you develop, you cultivate it. And so the cultivation of compassion is directly related to the Buddhist concept of emptiness. So, meaning that compassion is something that might arise naturally as you become more familiar with reality as it is versus the distortion of reality that is a quality of the neurotic mind. So to try to put that in like a more simple way, stuck in an elevator. Like, have you ever been stuck in an elevator? I haven't. I'm trying to think of an example. Or like, have you ever been like, oh, this just happened to me today. I'm working on something, getting breakfast, just got a fucking blood draw. No, I don't know if that's an important detail or not, but I am a little grumpy because I'm like waiting for food, and I just got like a shit ton of blood sucked out of me because I'm diabetic and I have to like make sure the Ozempic they give me is working. Way too much detail. So this dude comes and sits next to me at the counter. And the first thing I do after thinking like, you fucking dick, you really gonna sit right next to me in this fucking wide open counter space here at this breakfast spot? And then I look around because I haven't noticed because I've been absorbed in what I'm doing. All the seats have filled up. Like, he didn't do anything wrong at all. He just wanted to eat breakfast just like me. But because of my distorted thinking, and because of a sense of someone being too close to me, it created a kind of like quick neurotic claustrophobic sense connected to a ignorant idea. Literally, I've been ignoring everything around me about how the situation was. And so my natural response to that was the opposite of compassion. It was like, fuck you. So the idea when it comes to emptiness is that the more you begin to slow down and the more you begin to stop avoiding the darkness inside of you, and you start like developing this practice of when shitty things come up, the shitty thing which most people have, some form of anxiety, some form of anger, some lack of forgiveness, some mind phenomena or something in your own life, a shitty roommate or whatever your the sand in your oyster happens to be. Instead of using like all of the neurotic tricks to avoid it, you actually directly experience it. You let yourself feel it fully, and you kind of remove the story from it too. So instead of saying this is happening because of this, you just allow yourself to feel it minus the story. And so this is the beginning of the practice of something called metta. And so, and what you're doing is you're becoming familiar with these experiences you've been avoiding in a variety of ways. And we all have incredible tricks for it. Now, someone listening to me ramble right now could think like Baldur's Gate, you mean like being addicted to Baldur's Gate? No. I feel like I need to say that. Baldur's Gate is a very meditative practice for me. But you could argue video games, workaholism, obsessive attitudes, blaming, sort of writing yourself into the role of a victim. All of these are ways to avoid directly feeling it. And so over time, this happens in the same way you get old, in the same way you get fat, in the same way that, slowly. But over time, you start learning this subtle method of not directly feeling. And over time, that subtle method becomes your personality, your habits. And so what you're doing in the practice of metta or meditation is you're beginning this excavation process, which is you are reverse engineering the thing that got you into the situation where you feel like you need to ignore, avoid, run away from, or run to things to not feel. And so what begins to happen is really quite incredible, which is that if you can start allowing yourself, even though it seems unbearable, like some people like going through grief or heartbreak, it can seem like I can't feel that. I can't do that. I'm not going to let myself feel that. And so you don't have to feel it for more than a second, but you start taking you start dipping your toe in that swimming pool that you've been sort of avoiding for your whole life. And the way that you dip your toe into that is so fucking fascinating. And this is the practice of metta, which is usually this happens within a sitting meditation, but you could do it in your car. You could do it right now if you wanted to. And I used to hate it because I didn't understand it, and I thought it was really stupid. But basically, so what you do is when that feeling comes, you breathe in and you imagine that you are breathing in that feeling. I mean, this is how you start with yourself. It actually expands out. But the first step is, I am feeling suffering. Like, so when we talk about compassion, we're not just talking about compassion for people outside of us, which is, it's weirdly easy to forget about ourselves. So you hear about being compassionate, and generally you leave yourself out of the equation completely. Like this you-ness thing that is suffering, whatever, it'll be fine. I'm going to have compassion for fill in the blank. And so that's where you need to start. So if you are experiencing suffering, that is a human being experiencing suffering in the world. That's a human being feeling. That's you. And you're experiencing suffering. That's whatever that feeling is. And so instead of running away from it, you're letting yourself feel it minus the story. And then you imagine yourself breathing in hot, thick, black mist, which sounds crazy. That's why I used to hate it. It's like, I don't want to breathe in fucking hot, thick, black mist. Now, there is a step I've left out. And this is the other part of it. And I just don't want to complexify things. But no doubt, underneath all that shitty feelingness stuff, there is the feeling you get sometimes, maybe rarely. I hope it isn't rare for you. For your kids, for someone you love, for even if it's a memory. And that's that feeling they call your heart. And so that is the most incredible feeling. Now, a lot of us, because of these habits we've developed, we're afraid of that feeling for some reason. Or if you do get that feeling, usually you think you're about to get your heart broken. Because a lot of times that vulnerable open space is followed by disappointment. And so there's that fucking feeling that always gets me into trouble. So that's called bodhicitta, the awakened mind. And you can cultivate that, but you can flash on it. You might not, I can't maintain that, but I do know what that is and I know how to get there. So you flash on that. So this is just remember that. It doesn't have to be anything. It's nothing special. It's just, that you have experienced joy. You know that you've experienced overwhelming love. You know that you've experienced all the things preceding heartbreak, or all the things that you think were yanked away from you by the cruel universe. That's a possibility. You felt it. So flash on that. And then start breathing in that thick black smoke. And so then when you exhale, you imagine yourself breathing out like radiant, cool white light, and your body is actually emanating bright white light. And so the way they put this is you're sort of reversing the process that got you into the situation of confusion. And it sounds absolutely idiotic I thought that for years. I hated it when people started talking about it. I hate it when I read about it. I just thought it was so dumb. But if you just start experimenting with it, what will happen, which is really incredible, is pretty quickly when those feelings emerge, instead of trying to avoid them, you think, oh, there it is. It's like, the one description is you sit in the forest, and if you get really quiet, animals start coming out. And so it's like this thing pokes its head out. And so this is called, these things can be self-liberated, and they're called kleshas. And so the self-liberating quality of them, in other words, they want to be free. Like there is an impulse within them not to be stuck, like anything else, like water, like I don't know, balloons, in a car. You open the door, they want to go up in the sky. It's like that. It wants to be liberated. So that this space, this meta space, sort of creates a natural valve that they can get out of. And so over time, you just start feeling spacious, a little less stuck, and a little more capable of sort of dropping the story. And so the compassion, to answer your question, because you have begun this exploration of yourself via non-ignorance or confrontation, I think that's a rough word for it because it implies a fight, like awareness of these negative sort of kleshas. If you're logical, you can think, I think other people are pretty much like me. Meaning the next step would be, let's say that you're feeling a classic parental anxiety. You're trying to get some work done and your kids are like being super loud. Your wife's tired and you're going to have to forego this thing that you're trying to do and help. You're going to have to go from this, what you maybe have told a story, I got to do this for my family, versus actually helping my family. So you're having this classic experience. And it's suffering, essentially, some flavor of suffering. Now, what you can extrapolate from that is, I bet I'm not the only parent feeling this right now. I bet there's a fuck ton of us out there right now feeling the anxiety, like, man, I gotta get this done. I gotta do this. Like, how do I balance this and that? How do I be a good dad and also make good stuff? And I bet there's a lot of people feeling that. And so then that's where compassion starts. You're naturally understanding yourself, and that, number one, you didn't choose to feel like that. It just pops up. They probably didn't choose to feel like that either. That's just suffering. And so then now you're not just breathing in your own darkness. You imagine you're breathing in all of their suffering too. And you can also just do this for people you love. Usually the phases of this start with like someone that you're concerned about, who you love, and they're suffering. So you're doing this and you're breathing in their suffering, breathing out light. And then it expands to people you don't know might be suffering like that. And then, God help us all, it expands to the people you can't forgive. Good luck with that one. Person who's a real piece of shit. Whoever you can't forgive, whoever hurt you and did the thing. And so, but this is phases, you know? You need to first be able to do it for yourself. How the fuck are you going to be able to do it for some asshole who banged your girl in a nightclub, who fingered her under the table while you went up to get margaritas, if you can't even do it for yourself? So you start with yourself and you expand it out. And then eventually you could theoretically get to the point where this encompasses not just all beings on Earth, but all sentient beings in the universe. And this process produces a kind of natural, spontaneous compassion that emerges, because you'll notice that the way you behave when you are frustrated is different from the way you behave when you're not. The way you behave when you feel like things are going your way is usually pretty open-hearted, pretty sweet, pretty generous. These are called the paramitas in Buddhism. Pretty patient. This is like you're having a great day. You just got that Pokemon box set that you just didn't think you were going to get at GameStop. You're so happy. You walk out of GameStop with a big smile on your face, waving to people. They applaud. You're going to be nicer. But let's imagine that you're not walking out of GameStop. Let's imagine you're walking out of the fucking doctor's office. He just told you got fucking diabetes. You got to deal with this now, man. You could have a stroke. Probably the way you're going to be treating people isn't going to be the most kind way, because that story is reverberating in your head. So suffering induces a kind of a sort of series of kleshas that generally involve selfishness, impatience, aggression. And so logically, if there were a way to sort of get all that ink out of your printer, so to speak, so the printer can't print that shit anymore, it's not there anymore, it's self-liberated, then this spontaneous compassion would emerge. Not just because you're out of shit printer ink, but because you have begun to see yourself and other people from a deep exploration of yourself. And so if someone's being a complete asshole, it's not that hard to put two and two together and think, oh, I know how that feels, man. I know what that's like. And then instead of being like, I ought to break your fucking nose, I know what my fucking girl's pussy smells like. It's all of your fingers. You fingered her. Well, I went to get you drinks. You look and you say, you think to yourself, I fingered your girlfriend under the table 2 weeks ago. I know what that's like. And that's how compassion, that's the kind of compassion that's real versus the fake compassion, fake forgiveness, where you just want to feel like a good person. So you're like, I've forgiven that person, but you're still bugged by it. It's still in there. It hurts. It's there. It's there. You haven't really gotten the pebble out of your shoe. You've just tricked yourself into thinking that feeling that you're experiencing is unrelated or something. So, you know, that's my sort of rough understanding of it. I hope that helps you somehow.
Oh, we got